Hey, I'm Shunte, and thank you for reading with me today or just hanging out with me today. I am going to share a book with you that I just finished reading that I really think you should read too. I want to start out by just asking you a question. Would you open the box? Would you open the box? Okay, so you go outside one day, there's a box in front of your door. Maybe you live in a apartment building, right? And you look down the hall and you see that your neighbors have boxes too. So you reach down, you bring your box inside, and just before you decide that you're going to open your box, you hear on the news or while you're scrolling that what's inside the box is a string that holds the full measure of your life. And the scientists of the world have confirmed that this is indeed true. What lies inside the box is the measure of your life, meaning that depending on the length of your string, it will determine how many years you have left. And you have the choice to open or not to open your box. What do you do? Think about it. Nikki Erlick wrote The Measure that explores people's humanity in a way that is eye-opening, sometimes hurtful and sad. I don't usually cry when I read books or really get that emotional when I'm reading books. I read them, I enjoy them, I have my critical thoughts about them, and then I move on to another book. If I really like it, I share it because I enjoy the experience of reading and getting caught up in the lives of others. But I will say that this is a book that really took me there. I read earlier today that after reading this book, that someone described themselves as being emotionally unemployed, like their emotions were snatched, okay, and they're now working elsewhere, but they're not working within you because you are really going to be taken on an emotional, I don't want to call it a roller coaster because yes, there are ups, downs, twists and turns, but it's more like an emotional obstacle course, okay, because you kind of see where it's going, but it gets hard. And just when you think it's easy, or just when you think you're going to be able to cross this bridge or jump over this fence of, events that are happening, it's not exactly what it seems until you get the full scope of exactly what it is. They are, I will say there's conversation of politics. It makes a really huge appearance. And I'm trying not to give out too many spoilers, but I will give this one tidbit from the book that really resonated with me because I come from a military family. And it is the story of this young man who is related to a presidential candidate who happens to be a long stringer, which as you read, you will discover that those with long strings and those with short strings are being very clearly divided. And within the political world, they are being sort of pinned against each other. So it kind of eliminates a lots of things that kind of separate us today. In this book, a lot of the things that we think are important become so unimportant. And you learn very quickly that there are more things that can bring us together than really just tear us apart. And we actually have more things in common as human beings than we don't. And I think that that's one of the things that this book really does a good job at pointing out. So this young man who is connected to the presidential candidate is going through military training, and he discovers the length of his string, and his roommate discovers the length of his string. And he and his roommate are, they're very close. They're really good friends. And they decide to do a favor for one another and they trade strings. and they don't tell anyone, and then they continue to live their lives. Now, the catch for this military, this military group, or for anyone that's in the military in this book, is that if you're a government official, you are obligated to reveal the length of your string. Now, if you are a civilian or you're just living your everyday regular life and you're not a federal employee of any kind, then you don't have to reveal the length of your string. But everyone on their 22nd birthday is receiving a box. They are receiving a box, and they are gaining the knowledge of whether they're going to be long stringers or short stringers. And let me tell you, there is a hierarchy. And I will leave it there. I like the way that this book ended. It was a surprise, but then again, it wasn't a surprise. It was one of those instances where I was just like, I knew it. I just knew it. But you kind of didn't want it to be so. But it was, I won't say it left me emotionally bankrupt or emotionally unemployed, but it did grab at those heartstrings, you know? And it did have somewhat of a happy ending. There was something else that I was expecting to happen that didn't, but I'm not mad at it. And I'm glad that it went in the direction that it did. If you want to talk more about the measure, let me know. And also leave in the comments whether or not you are opening up that box. All right. Talk to you guys soon.